look, you deal with these guys at your own risk. Yeah, I know there's a whole bunch of bros who are like, oh, Bitcoin, I got this, I figured it out.
Democracy.
FTC, FTX, Dogecoin, etc. No, man, the professionals have already gone in and they've already set up very efficient robberies.
Sam Bankman-Fried is a fraud. He used every centralized method to defraud customers. And yes, he should go to prison because that's how it works. But don't lump Bitcoin and decentralized technologies in with this, because the purpose of Bitcoin was to prevent guys like this from ever gaining access to your funds. Hey everyone, welcome back. I've decided that I think TYT simply has an issue with staying in their lane, right? They don't know how to stay in their lane, right? They're not investors, they're not economists, they're not engineers, they're not software developers. They're political scientists, right? Their bread and butter is to discuss political science, right? And do a commentary on issues as they relate to political science, right? Money in politics, how money influences legislation, lobbyists, political systems. These are the things that they understand. This is their bread and butter, and this is where they should stay. The issue is when they veer off of that course and into realms that they don't understand. To Anna's credit, she stayed very focused for the first, let's say, 4 minutes of the previous video where she discussed Sam Bankman-Fried and Mr. Wonderful and their involvement in FTX and the issues of trust that went along with their involvement.
In August of 2021, it was announced that O'Leary would take an ownership stake in the parent companies of FTX.com and FTX.us as part of his compensation for becoming a spokesperson for FTX. Now, FTX subsequently went bankrupt due to Sam Bankman-Fried's behavior. He was secretly using client funds allegedly to make speculative bets that didn't work out so well. Now, what ended up happening after that? Because Kevin O'Leary was supposed to get paid a ton of money, right? He's a spokesperson for this crypto exchange. Kevin O'Leary said Thursday he's lost all of the $15 million FTX paid him to act as a spokesman for the now collapsed crypto exchange that some have called fraudulent. And the people who have called it fraudulent, by the way, are prosecutors, and we'll get to that in just a moment. O'Leary and other celebrities such as Tom Brady and Larry David were sued by FTX investors, these are people who deposited money into the exchange, who say the exchange's ambassadors should have done more due diligence and exercised a greater level of care before promoting the crypto empire. Look, the thing about Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, is that he has branded himself and positioned himself as a bit of a financial advisor, a bit of an expert when it comes to investing. And so when you do that, unfortunately, people end up trusting you and the advice that you give as a public figure. And all these people, in some cases, lost their life savings as a result of FTX and the alleged fraud that was committed here.
And she's absolutely correct. The issue is and always has been trust. That's something that every Bitcoiner understands. What I want to tell you is that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, is not a Bitcoiner. He's not a crypto guy. In fact, he's openly spoke against Bitcoin on several occasions. And the reason for that is because he wants you to custody with his exchange. Bitcoin advocates for self-custody. Okay, so what is he? Well, he's a fintech bro. He's the CEO of a software company that created an asset for the purpose of fundraising for his software company, subverting securities laws, accepting customer deposits to fund his private slush fund. That's what he is. What we're looking at here is a failure of centralization, not a failure of crypto. He's a fintech bro. He's utilizing a new market for the purpose of fundraising for his company. Now, the question becomes, how does he get away with this? How does he create his own asset, fundraise for his software company, use customer deposits for his own personal gambling? How does he get away with this? How did he get away with it for so long? Well, here's another failure of centralization. The people that should have been regulating him were in his back pocket the whole time. Okay? The CFTC, the FCC, all those people at the Senate, all those people at the hearing that were, so, upright and so righteous about all of their beliefs were the ones in his back pocket the whole time.
But what was he honest about that got him in trouble? Well, he said, oh yeah, the Democrats, I gave them money for PR.
Right.
I said I wanted them to regulate me, and of course I didn't. Well, that implicates the Democrats as being goddamn liars, right? And that they were easily bought by you. But then he added in, oh, I bought the Republicans too. I just gave them dark money so that I wouldn't get caught because that would be bad PR. So well, now you just outed the Republicans and the Democrats for open bribery.
He is a terrible person. And so the New York Times reports that the exchange, meaning FTX, lent Alameda as much as $10 billion.
Look, you deal with these guys at your own risk. Yeah, I know there's a whole bunch of bros who are like, oh, Bitcoin, I got this, I figured it out.
Democracy.
FTC, FTX, Dogecoin, etc. No, man, the professionals have already gone in and they've already set up very efficient robberies. But the bottom line is, he ain't here. He's in the Bahamas. And he's basically going, ha, if anybody was stupid enough to trust me, they deserve the fate that was coming. And you think the guys who haven't been caught aren't thinking the same exact thing as you're pouring your hard-earned money into this crap?
And so, again, every Bitcoiner understands this. This is a failure of centralization. You trust this guy, you don't know what he's doing with your money, right? He rehypothecates your funds, he's using them, he's co-mingling them with other business ventures, he's gambling with it, he's stealing it. We don't know what he's doing with those funds. You trust the FCC, they're being paid off. You trust Mr. Wonderful, he gets you to invest in a scam, right? The issue is and always has been trust. No Bitcoiner gives a shit about this because we all know self-custody is the only way to resolve these issues. I don't have to worry about this guy because I hold my own assets, which is the reason why he doesn't like Bitcoin, because he wants to hold your assets. And for some reason, TYT has a very difficult time compartmentalizing these things, right? We're looking at a centralized entity that failed, and we're looking at self-custody, right? They can't separate those two things. Instead, they throw them all into one pot and they mix them all up together. Say it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. They're political scientists, and the one thing they didn't do was respond to Elizabeth Warren's response to this very issue, which is effectively to attack open source software. How does that solve any problems? In fact, it makes the problem worse. What she's doing is effectively forcing people into the hands of this very person, right? By making the requirements on open source software, or attempting to make the requirements on open source software so high that it's unreasonable to even use, right? So someone like me at home typing on their computer, uploading his program to GitHub or Bitbucket or wherever, I would have to personally collect the personal data of anyone who forked my work or decided to copy my work, or anyone who used my work or downloaded my program. I would be responsible for personally collecting their data so that I could give it to Elizabeth Warren. That's insane. I mean, and this is the one part they should be talking about, because that's about legislation, right? The legislative response to a failure of centralization is more centralization. That's insane. Yet somehow they missed the mark on that. They're still talking about SBF, which they should be. Attack this guy, get him, right? Sure, no problem with that. But as viewers of this channel, your job is to understand that, one, they don't know what they're talking about, right? They're political scientists, they're not doing the research, and in fact, all of their responses are at the mercy of the research and reports that they receive. They're not doing any of it. They're not interviewing people. They're interviewing each other, right? And they're doing a fancy reaction video to these news stories, right? They're effectively doing exactly what I'm doing in this room right now, okay? And it's not their fault. I'm not blaming them. I just want them to stay in their lane. They do a very good job when they stay in their lane. If they just kept it about trust, they kept it about politics, and they kept it about influence, they would be fine. But don't try to lump Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies into this mess, because they're not a part of it. Sam Bankman-Fried is a fraud. He used every centralized method to defraud customers. And yes, he should go to prison, because that's how it works. But don't lump Bitcoin and decentralized technologies in with this, because the purpose of Bitcoin was to prevent guys like this from ever gaining access to your funds. If you don't see that, you just will never understand. What I can say is that he was incentivized to cheat, so he did, okay? The incentive models are all broken, okay? Every Bitcoiner also understands that. The incentive models are broken, and thus he's incentivized to cheat, all right? Now, if you change the incentive models, right, where you make it so ridiculously expensive to cheat that no one can ever do it, then you're good. If you incentivize proper behavior, then people will do that, right? That's what Bitcoin does. It incentivizes people to behave properly, because the other side of that is way too expensive. Every time they talk about Bitcoin or relate anything to Bitcoin, I'm gonna be right there, making sure everybody understands what's really going on here. This is a failure of centralization, and more centralization is not the answer, right? Incentivizing proper behavior is the solution, because we know the CFTC won't do their job if they're incentivized to look the other way, right? We know that Mr. Wonderful can't be trusted if he's incentivized to look the other way, right? He gets paid to just tell you whatever program is awesome. That's what he gets paid to do. You can't trust him. Can't trust anybody. The issue is and always has been trust. And Bitcoin is the solution to that. Nothing else to it.
Look, he owes over 1 million people about $3 billion at a minimum. Now, could some of those folks be wealthy? Sure.
Yeah, no, there's definitely wealthy folks involved, including, I forget his full name. His last name's Leary, though. He's one of these CNBC guys, Shark Tank guys, who had invested heavily in FTX.
Oh, yeah, the bald guy.
The bald guy, yeah. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name. Kevin O'Leary. There we go.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of this, where the customers are suing, not only Sam Bankman-Fried, but they're suing Mr. Wonderful. The reason why that's happening is my personal belief. And I can't, I don't have any information to corroborate this, but I understand that usually in these situations, customer deposits become assets for the company. So if the company goes bankrupt or if they become insolvent, then the customer deposits become the bank's money to pay back whomever they need to pay back. So effectively, as an investor, all the top people at the top of the company, they all get their money back first, right? So everybody at the bottom, all retail, all the little chum down there at the bottom, at the FTX rabbit hole, they get their money back last. So all the big investors, which would probably include Mr. Wonderful, will get their money back first. And the only way to make sure that they get their money back as retail is to sue Mr. Wonderful, right? That would make sense to me. He was the reason why a lot of people jumped into FTX. Don't know why, but he was. And he can be pointed to as a figurehead at FTX because he was being paid to be that. And as such, he's probably going to be one of the first people to get their money back. And if I was retail, I would know as a fact, you're probably not going to be made whole. You're probably not going to get all your money back. You probably won't get, pennies on the dollar back. Maybe, maybe not. What we do know is that if anyone gets paid, it's going to be the people who were the first investors. The first investors are going to get their money back first. And it only makes sense to sue those guys because if they get their money back, you should get a piece of whatever they get back because you lost too, right? So I don't really know. That's just my theory. That's my tinfoil hat on. But again, I would prefer if they focused on Elizabeth Warren, focused on FTX as a corporation, and left Bitcoin out of it. Just leave Bitcoin out of it. Leave Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies out of it. No Bitcoiner gives a shit about this. We don't care. This doesn't affect me at all. I'm sleeping real good. No problems. Okay? Hope you guys have a good holiday. I'm sorry I'm a little sick right now. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. And hope you guys have a great weekend. Later, guys.